Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at Flipping Houses for Rookies. I'm so glad to be able to do that now that I'm getting my health back here. We're on episode number 271, and the name of today's episode is How to Buy a House Virtually Without Physically Seeing It. Oh, I didn't know you could do that, but we're going to talk about it. Here's the description. If you're having trouble as an investor finding deals in your backyard, then it's time to expand your farm market. In this unique podcast, we're going to speak to another student of mine who's on the line with me that's from a different country and buys property in the good old US of A without physically seeing the properties. When it comes to real estate deal hunting, time and money counts a lot. Yes, the faster you can find motivated sellers and get on the phones with them, the faster you can cash those big profit checks. If you're asking yourself how, then you are in the right spot at the correct time. It will seem a lot simpler once you hear some of the experience that myself and my guest speaker are going to give you today. And this will make it much easier than you think. It's always that way. Actually, you will soon see the process is not much different than doing deals in your backyard. And by listening today, you will see exactly where it is different and how to tweak that part of the deal so you don't make horrifying mistakes that cost you everything. More important, unless you tell your sellers the way we do it, they will never know that you don't live there. And that's the trick. All right. So before we get started, just realize that back in early 2020, the pandemic happened in March of 2020. And like most of my listeners and most of my students, it turned the apple cart upside down, because we weren't going in houses, looking at houses during the pandemic. The whole real estate business shut down because nobody wanted anybody in their house. So what I did, I think it was March or April of 2020, is I recorded a video of how we were doing virtual deals. This was the first concept I had of doing virtual, because it seems people were more acceptable to doing Zoom calls and all that because they had to do it for work and they were trying to survive. And as the time went through the early 2020 into the mid-year, it got better and better. So, excuse me, if you want to see that video, just go into the description of wherever you're listening to us, either on your podcast channel or if you're in Facebook or YouTube watching us record, which, by the way, we do that. You should go to Facebook or you should go to YouTube and you should subscribe to our channel. And when we go live, you will get, it'll pop up saying that we are live, and you can actually watch us or listen to us while we're doing it live. The reason why you might want to do that is because if you put a comment below any one of those in Facebook or in if you have a question in Facebook or in YouTube, you can ask the question while we're live and I will answer it. Okay? So there you go. Just go into your chat. There's a video there. And if you want to ask questions while we're on the podcast, just join us on Facebook or YouTube. I think the next podcast or the one after it, Pete's going to be back. So we'll probably go back to a regular schedule and we'll let you know what that is as soon as we figure it out. But for now, we're here with Seth. And I think your last name is spelled Barak, right?
Yes.
Barak. Yeah. Okay. So, anyways, he's my guest speaker. I really appreciate him being here. He's taken time out of his busy schedule, and he's going to share some of his experiences once we get through the podcast. I have a couple of things I want to cover in the beginning, but as we get through the podcast, his experience will come right at the exact perfect time so you can see how to use it. But for right now, I just want you to know that he lives out of the country, but buys in the United States. So, Seth, instead of me like rambling on about who you are and what you are, why don't you take a couple minutes and just tell us about yourself and let the guests hear what you want to say.
All right. So thanks, Bill, for having me here. It's very exciting. Being an avid follower of the podcast for a long time, and coaching student and everything.
Yes, you have.
So my name is Asaf Barak. I'm Israeli. I live in Israel, born and raised and residing. And I've been investing in real estate in the United States for about a year and a half. And in the last few months, really getting into the creative deal structuring, as we call it. Working mainly in Central Arkansas, and doing it virtually from back home.
So your farm market is in Arkansas, and you live in Israel.
That's right.
What's the time difference?
The time difference is 8 hours.
8 hours. So, and I don't know how many miles. It's thousands of miles away, right? I mean, it's halfway across the world.
Yeah.
Good. And we're going to get into this in a few minutes, but what drives you? Like, just real quick, like, what's your passion with this real estate thing? What is your motivation to? Because that means that you're up in the middle of the night making phone calls in the middle of the night if you want to talk to people.
Yeah, a lot of times, I find myself talking to people at midnight and past that. Even 1, 2, 3 a.m. Sometimes. And my passion with real estate, it's kind of new, actually. It's only something that I came around to in the last couple of years. And it was always very far away from me until I got bit by the bug, I guess. and it's just, something that I'm very interested and passionate about, and obviously looking to, build financial freedom and do it while helping other people on the way. This is, I think, that the best thing about creative real estate, creative deal structuring, and all the stuff that you teach and do and teach actually, is we get to help a lot of people on the way.
Yeah.
And by the way, I didn't say it, but my profession, I'm a musician.
I was just going to say, I was going to just wait for you to finish. I'm like, come on, tell us about how you're an artist, because that's important. As soon as Pete it's going to be all over it.
Yeah, it's funny. I have to talk to Pete sometime about it. We're both guitar players and guitar teachers. I don't teach that much these days, but I used to teach a lot. I'm a professional guitar player, and I play I have a blues rock band here in Israel that gigs a lot. And I also run a music booking agency with my life partner, mate, and business partner, Dana, my girlfriend, who's watching now. So, and so from the music and arts, I kind of rolled into real estate and ran into you a few months ago, and now I'm here.
Yes, you are. And you're here both boots in. I want to give you credit for that, because we spoke, and we obviously, I have a coaching group in Israel that's not very big, but you guys are wicked powerful. You guys are wicked smart, wicked powerful, and you just do shit, man. It's amazing. And you're both you're all the way in. You dived into the deep end, and you're doing it. You're doing your calls, you're talking to people, and you're doing it. So my hat's off to you on that. So
thank you.
All right, let's get down to some business here. Before we get into too many details, I'd like to take a couple minutes and just talk about So take a couple minutes and clear up my bold claim in the podcast description. Okay. And what I talked about, the part about being virtual deals, are very similar to doing your backyard deals, except for a few tweaks. So I want to cover that because I know I'll get support tickets on that. So I'm telling you that if you just follow my system, and it's not like my system. I guess it's my system because I put it in, I organized it and made it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I through the years I've had a lot of training. My education is well over $100,000 and growing. Over the course of 20 years. You won't do that in the beginning, but I keep reinvesting in myself. It never stops. I mean, I'm in a coaching group now, and it just never stops. You can never stop learning. It's a different type of learning, but I never stop learning. So I'm always gaining knowledge on how to do things better or easier or quicker. So let's just cover that real quick. The system I'm talking about has 5 or 6 steps. And the first step is, and this is core to creative real estate. And when we're talking about creative real estate, what we mean is that we're more than likely buying pretty houses, and we're buying them either on terms, which I'll explain in a minute, or a discount. Okay, so that's basically what it is. But let me just read this and you'll understand it, so we can go through and you can get the concept and understand. When we get to Seth and what he's doing, it'll be a lot clearer. So I'm just going to take a couple minutes to go over that. So number one, the first step is finding out who is the best contact for you based on your available resources. So basically, if you have no money and you don't know where to get private money or hard money or anything like that, or you don't know how to do renovations, don't go looking for flips. Do, rent to owns or lease options or that kind of stuff. When you're first starting out, I tell people all the time, you've rented a property in the past. Most people have rented a property for themselves. Like you rented a house or an apartment. If you've done that, you know how to do real estate. You just got to know how to turn it into money, right? So if that's your knowledge base, then stick with it and make money until you get used to doing real estate, and then you can do the other deals, right? Now, I'm not going to cover this here. I covered this at length with Jessie, my daughter, in podcast number 269, and it's called Where to Find High Quality Prospects and How to Talk to Them Smoothly. So if you want to know about matching your resources to who you should be talking to, that's the place to go. But here's the bottom line. Better than 60% of your success is going to be who you choose to talk to. 60% is who you talk to, 20% is your message, and another 20% is how you say it. So that means you're off the hook. You could fumble around and be a fumbling idiot and not say things right, but 80% of the deal is done for you if you talk to the right person and you use the messages that I give you. And it's done for you because we've tested them and used them and bought lots of houses with them. Okay, so don't get stuck on that. So the first thing you're going to want to do is pick who you want to talk to, and it's going to be kind of like you're going to go after the low hanging fruit. You're going to go find people that are similar to you and that are like you, so it's easier to talk to them. Okay. Number 2, once you figure out where they are, like what type of fish and where the pond is, or where the water is, and what kind of bait they want. Now you're ready to talk to them. And number 2 is contact those sellers. And we use a 2-step system. And the 2-step system or a 2-step process is A, text them and warm them up so you're not cold calling them. And 2, do an opening call once they accept the opening call. So in the text, you're going to be, like we text them, would you be willing to rent your house for a year or 2 and then I buy it, or something like that, right? And if they say yes, then you text them back 1 or 2 more texts, and the object is to get them on the phone. Okay, so that's step 2. Step 2 is contacting them. It's a 2-step process. You text them, and then you get them on an opening call. Okay, so the opening call is just to find out if they're willing to do a terms deal, which means you're going to want to pay them monthly until you get them paid off, or some sort of a discount, like a 30% discount. I'm going to go over that in a minute. Okay, so all the opening call is to find out if they're willing to hear about that. Not willing to do it, just willing to hear about that. And if it's yes, then you move on to step number 3, which is once the potential prospect has proven on the opening call he or she is willing to talk about taking monthly payments or a 30% discount, you'll move to the closing call. This is where you do the most important part of your job, the discovery process. Asking questions, finding the true problem that is the motivation for the seller to sell. Think of it this way. Asef has a house and he's owned it for 10 years. All of a sudden, he's selling it. Why is he selling it? He's had it for 10 years. Like the first day he bought this house, he was really excited. He was really happy. He was ready to like create in this house. So what changed? Why is he not happy? Why doesn't he want it anymore? What occurred in his life that he's selling this house? And you need to figure that out in the discovery stage. Okay, you need to find out just what happened and why is he upset with this house, or why doesn't he want it anymore, or why has his love or affinity for this house dropped? Like what happened, right? Now sometimes it's probate and stuff like that, and then it's easier, but you need to figure that out. Okay. Once you figure that out, through the discovery stage, you're going to move on to step number 4. And once you know what's needed and wanted, in other words, you know why Asef is not happy with this house and why he wants to sell it, or you have some idea, you know what he needs and wants. For example, we cover need and greed quite a bit. So I always say in the coaching groups, need means there's a problem within the house. Like they don't want the payment anymore. They want relief. They don't want to go there and cut the grass anymore. Their mom and dad passed away and left them the house and they don't want it. They just want to get rid of it. They just want their money. That's all need. Okay. Greed is outside of the transaction. That means, well, I have $100,000 worth of equity in my house and I need to pay my kids' college tuition off, or, I want to go buy another house. I need this money to go make a down payment. Okay. So you're going to try to figure that out. Now that you know that in step 4, you know if it's need or greed, you know what's needed and wanted from the seller, and you start to propose solutions using my core 7 strategies of how you could do this, right? As a guide for something that the seller's comfortable with. And when you understand the core 7 strategies, because if you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, scroll all the way to the bottom of the page. We just revamped the page. Scroll all the way to the bottom of the page. There's a girl there holding money, and it's the creative real estate course 101 course. You can go in there and you could see the core 7 strategies and what happens. But basically, once you understand what's going on, you'll start with one of those strategies and say to them, hey, Asef, would you be willing to do this? And you give them an offer. If they say, no, I want all my money now. Okay, would you be willing to do this? And you make a couple offers on that closing call. It's not as hard as you think. And we're going to talk about that in a couple minutes because Asef is going to give us some of his live examples. But this is known as the casual offer making. Okay, so now we get to step 5, and this is where it changes. Okay, step 5. Once you found who to talk to, once you contacted them by text, you did an opening call to take their temperature on whether they're willing to do a terms deal, and then you do a closing call and you find out, okay, so they're willing to let you do a rent to own. Right, and they talk some numbers with you, like they're willing to sell you for $160,000, and they'll take $1,000 a month for a rental payment, and they're willing to let you sublease it. Okay, you know all that. At this point, you're going to push forward because you're going to want to go into the deal meeting, and that's where we tweak things. That's where everything up to this point has been the same, whether you're doing it virtual or whether you're doing it in your backyard. So now we get to step 5, the deal meeting. This is where you actually look at the property. See, up to now, we were only qualifying or testing and verifying the seller's true intentions of motivation. We didn't care about the property. In fact, when I do trainings on how to find properties on Facebook, I often say, just click on a property and send a message. Don't even look at it. You don't care what the property is until we get to step 5. Okay? The property was irrelevant up until then. We did not care. If the seller's not willing to accept our terms deal, there's no sense in talking about the property. Why waste 20 minutes talking about how many bedrooms and the condition of the property and the repairs they did? Why do you want to do that if they're not willing to do a terms deal? So this is where the virtual deal and the backyard deal is a little bit different. Everything up to this point, like I said, has been the same. So when you're talking about doing virtual deals, the only thing that changes is step 5. Everything else stays the same. So it's not that difficult. So, all right, Steph. So let's talk about the deal meeting. Okay, so the first thing we do at a deal meeting is we're going to qualify the property, and then we're going to do paperwork. So we're just going to talk about qualifying the property. So I know that you're in Arkansas. We use, I think that's what you said, Arkansas, right?
That's my phone. Yeah.
So we use boots on the ground, meaning somebody local to the area that we can go there. And I know that you have boots on the ground for your properties in Arkansas, and you've used them. So I'd like to talk about that in a minute. And I also know you have questions about if you change if you change from Arkansas to go somewhere else, how do you get new boots on the ground and what do you do? So let's start off with your experience with your boots on the ground. So you have somebody there and have sent him out to take a look at property. So why don't you talk about that for a couple minutes and just tell the listeners what you've experienced.
Okay. So basically, I have a great boots on the ground. He's actually like a partner there in Arkansas. We've been developing a relationship for a long time now. Yeah. So he's I call him more than boots on the ground, but because that sometimes to me sounds like just somebody that you send to go and take pictures and all that. But really, he's
usually that's correct. Yeah, he's overqualified.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's Justin, he's also an investor himself. He's licensed as a realtor. He's a property manager. And I actually the way we connected is he reached out to me and he got my name, my number from a contractor that worked on a project, like a rental project that I bought with another investor. This wasn't like a creative, this was like just regular rental property. We had a contractor do a contractor stint on us, like they sometimes or a lot of the times do, and some other guy that we were thinking of hiring to do the job that the other one didn't do.
That's how it works right there. Listen to what he just said. I got to interrupt you. He started off with one guy, ended up with somebody else because he's poking around and asking questions. That's how it works.
Yeah, well, it's a long story, so I don't want to, take all the time to do it. But basically, we got screwed badly by one contractor who's really con. The emphasis should be on con.
Contractor.
Yeah, contractor. But so we got screwed up, and this guy actually worked for him. He brought this guy to work, for him to do the work in there. And so we kicked that guy out. This guy, we were thinking of hiring him, and yeah, we went with somebody else. But basically, this is, I think, something that a lot of beginners can learn from this. That sometimes you get screwed up by something, or something bad happens, but the outcome you never know how it rolls. So
my philosophy is this pendulum swings both ways. If it swings really bad, it'll swing the other way and give you really good. Just figure out where it is.
Yeah. So one day I get a text from this guy who I don't know. He introduced himself as a realtor and a property manager, and told me he got my name from the other contractor who we didn't hire in the end eventually. And he just wanted to reach out and see how we can help, and in the beginning, I thought, oh, he's just another realtor, and I've spoken to quite a few by then, and didn't know what was going to happen with it, but we began speaking, and we connected, and it's been a while, like over a year now. I think that we've known each other for almost a year, and so we connected on many levels, and they were, I can say, we're friends, and we have a lot of conversations on real estate and not real estate, and of course he's my main man down there in Arkansas. Um,
So
and
just to kind of put this in perspective, Asaf. I know you're in the middle of this, but I mean, just think of the chain stores. Think of McDonald's and Exxon and Shell and Home Depot and Lowe's and Walgreens and CVS. I mean, these are big chains, and we're not them. But at the end of the day, they bought the piece of property in your neighborhood because there was somebody there talking about it. There was
yeah,
boots on the ground. They've been doing this for a very long time. It just now starting, and technology is catching up so that we can do it with houses. But it's the same concept. There's a local yokel there that knows the turf, knows the neighborhood, knows that it's a busy street, not a busy street. I mean, we can figure all that stuff out, but they tell you things that you may not know on the computer. So give me some examples of what this guy might have told you, just in like, by the way, conversations. I don't know if you could pull up a conversation, but just things that you found out about your area just by chatting with this guy. Like, have you had that happen?
Oh, almost every day, So really, this guy, I said he's, I guess he's overqualified to be called just boots on the ground, because he's an investor and a realtor and a property manager. He knows a lot of, I mean, he's familiar with the market, the farm market, and he knows like real estate laws and stuff like that I'm sometimes not aware of, and obviously, like, he knows, if I can see, and this is true to anybody, looking at properties on the internet, on Zillow or PropStream or whatever, I can see whatever is on the internet. Pictures, a lot of the times, are not, recent, are not up to date. Um, Details and all of that stuff is sometimes not accurate. And the most important thing, I think, is when you look at any property online, is you can see the property itself. Again, sometimes you can't even see that because you see the pictures are from like 7 years ago or 10 years ago. But say the pictures are up to date, you don't have a very good understanding of the area, like the street, the neighborhood. Sometimes you can have like a house that's looking pretty, and it's got another couple of pretty looking houses around it, but there's I don't know, just like
There's an ugly one 5 houses down you didn't see.
yeah,
Bringing the cops
or
down.
there's something happening like on the other side of on the other
They're
street.
building a factory over there that's got chemicals in it.
Yeah. So this is like basically, any boots on the ground can drive there and say, hey, this is like this and this is going on, and uh, of course, my guy, because he's like very, he's I think he knows his stuff.
I just want to bring this. This is a very valid point, and I hope I could do this easily. But like, I talk to a lot of sellers, obviously. So a seller might say to me, oh, I've had trouble with the water pump in the past. Like, say it has a well, right? And you take that as like critical information. But one of the things you have to do when you're talking about logic and understanding things is you have to dateline it. Like when did that happen? So often I'll ask a seller, oh, okay, so like I just said, when did that happen? Oh, that was like 12 years ago when we first bought the house. We had trouble with the water. Oh, okay, so what did you do? Oh, we had a guy come out and fix it. Okay, good. So has it been like that since? No, it hasn't. So when he first gave me the piece of information, it was alarming, like, oh, there's a problem with the water. But if I had not asked him to dateline it, in other words, plug it into a date, I wouldn't have known the rest of the story. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
what Asef is saying is, by having boots on the ground, you could be looking at pictures online that were 2 years old. So what you're doing is you're sending the boots on the ground to give you the current situation of the house. It could have been beautiful then, and it could be wrecked now. And believe it or not, more often than not, it's the other way around. It looks crappy online and it looks really good now because somebody fixed it. So by sending somebody on boots on the ground, you're getting a current snapshot of a couple things. Number one, the house itself. And number two, the neighborhood. Number three, like he's saying, it could be like they're building a factory around the corner. So the boots on the ground are going to give you the current scene so you can think with the current scene. And that's the biggest thing that they're going to do. So when you pal around with these people, and they're the right people, and we're going to talk about how to find them in a minute, but when you pal around with these people, they're going to kind of give you the current scene in that neighborhood. Right? Does that make sense, Asef?
Yeah, definitely.
So when you're talking to the boots on the ground, obviously the first thing they're going to do is take pictures or a video. I mean, it's too easy nowadays with FaceTime or anything similar to that. Even just a video, just send you videos of the outside, the inside. I mean, I've even had people drive the neighborhood with a video and let me see what the neighborhood looks like, right? Or go down to that house 5 doors down and take pictures of that and let me see what it looks like, right? So basically they're your arms and legs because you're not there. But the most important thing is they're not there to evaluate. They're just there to give you an idea of the current situation so that you can logically make a decision, right?
Well, in my case, or in our case, this guy is he knows his stuff, and he's an investor himself, so he can evaluate sometimes, and he's a realtor, so he can do like
Right.
he's get on the MLS and everything.
But again, it's on the current situation. It's on the current situation. He'll say, "I think this house is worth 180,000. Here's the reason why."
Yeah.
But absolutely, that happens. Yes. And then once that's just the first part of it is the evaluation of the house, because if you're selling it the way we do it on lease options, then you're going to have the boots on the ground actually set it up for you. They're going to put a lockbox on the house for you. They're going to put stuff inside the house, flyers and stuff, and they're going to help advertise it, maybe meet some clients if you're going to sell it that way. Right? So, I'm in the process of making that checklist now because when I had COVID pneumonia and I was in the hospital, a month ago for 2 weeks, I laid in bed and I had $20,000 invested in a house that I had just purchased before I got sick. And that house just laid there with a dumpster out front and my money tied up in it. And I had nobody to go out and actually get it started for me. In the past I've had that, but lately I do a lot of the transactions myself. And it was me that had to go out there and do that. That will never happen again. So I'm in the process of making that standard operating procedure list, like the checklist of like, okay, so once I buy the property, I turn it over to my boots on the ground, whether they're in my backyard or whether they're, 3,000 miles away, and it starts the process, right?
Right.
And our software does that. The software we use, which we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes, has the ability to set up that checklist. So you could put it in one of the campaigns and actually send your boots on the ground a text, say, hey, today I need you to do this, or an email, here's some documents I need you to sign, or whatever you need. You can automate it through our system, which costs $50 a month. All right, so we're good with that. You done? I kind of cut you off. You done with what you're saying, so we can move on how to find boots on the ground, or do you have more you want to say?
No, that's good. I think the way I see it is you have two kinds, but you have more than two kinds of boots on the ground. And maybe I'm leading you on a little bit here, but so you have the experience, people who are experienced in real estate, and they, to some extent, or to a high degree, and you have like your, I guess, rookie beginner boots on the ground, which is somebody you can, you can teach them, but they just begin by, doing the technical stuff like going, visiting the property, taking pictures, video, um, and I think
So this is
to
a valid
me,
point.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah.
You're done.
No, I think I just wanted to bring it up because
This is a valid point because I want to tell you a secret that it took me 25 years to figure out. And I just figured it out this past year. And it's because of a coach that I have coaching me that I figured it out. Okay. Virtual assistants are easy if you understand this concept. Most people hire a virtual assistant to like do the whole process. Like you want a virtual assistant to work for you like 30 hours or 40 hours a week, and they work for you much like an employee in your business. What I found is with virtual assistants, it's too easy to hire them for an hour or two a day because they have multiple accounts sometimes. So the trick is to hire a virtual assistant for a specific job. Like I have one girl, she comes in every day at 4:30 and she responds to my texting because we text hundreds of people a day. And she responds to the texting and works 90 minutes. All she does is text. And I have another VA, I have two of them that do opening calls. Right? And I have another VA that's an administration person. But each one only works a couple hours a day. Okay. So you got that concept. So when we're doing boots on the ground, it's the same thing. You're not looking for the one does everything. So you can hire that person for $10 or $15 an hour to go in and do the non-real estate type stuff. Then you can hire another person to do real estate type stuff. So you can have more than one boots on the ground. So that's a perfect segue to go into how do you find boots on the ground. One way is to go into Craigslist and post an ad. You're just looking for labor. You're looking for somebody that's responsible, has a phone and can take pictures. That's the person that can go take pictures of the house. That's the person that can drive the neighborhood. That's the person that could put up your signs. That's, they could do that kind of stuff. Okay. And it's by the job, right? So you pay them, by the hour, and you pay them for the amount of hours they work. You call them when you need them and they go, right? Like, hey, I need somebody to go in the house twice a week to make sure the heat is on. That's the person that would do that, right? I need you to go take pictures, or I need you to go meet this person and let them in, unlock the house for you or something like that. So you would find, so the most common place to find that person is on Craigslist. Facebook is another place to do that. You can do that in Facebook just by going in the buy-sell sites for that city. So I'm in Wallingford, Connecticut. So in Wallingford, Connecticut, I would go into the buy-sell sites, and there's usually 2,000 to 10,000 people on those sites. You enter in those sites. That's a good place for you to advertise your houses as well. But you can go in there and say, hey, I'm looking for somebody to like work an hour a week or 2 hours a week, or, a stay-at-home mom that has a car and a camera, and you'll find someone. Okay. The next level up would be, okay, so that's just for raw labor. That's just for boots on the ground. That's just raw labor. The other place that you can go is you can go to property managers in the area, right? So that's a good place to find boots on the ground. Go to a property manager because you'll probably end up using a property manager anyways, just to have a constant boots on the ground. And they're between 8 and 10% of the income. So, think about it. If you're getting $1,000 a month for rent income, you're going to pay them $100 a month. Okay, most, maybe $80 a month. Some do it less, maybe $70 a month. It's worth it because they're going to collect all the payments. They're going to deal with this leaky sink, talking to the contractor. They're going to do all that. So property managers, just Google in the area property managers. And I want to back up a sec because you said that, which I forgot to mention, you said that the first guy that you hired, you got burned. And then you found
that's
this
a contractor.
The contractor, that's right. So the way to prevent that, and I'm not saying this is that you did do it wrong, but I'm not making you wrong, is to get 2 or 3 people to look at it, not just have one guy look at it and give a price. So you get 2 or 3 people to look at it and get their opinions. Okay, so that's the way to avoid that. So So you're going to do the same thing with property managers. You're going to send out 2 or 3 of them to look at the property. You're going to talk to them. You're going to get an idea if they're the right person. The other place to go is like Angie. Well, used to be called Angie's List. Now it's Angie.com. You can go on Thumbtack. Thumbtack's another great place to find local help. And in these places, you can look for a plumber, an electrician, but you can also look for handyman. Handymen are great boots on the ground because that's what they do. They're not a professional, plumber, so they're not going to charge you $150 an hour. They might charge 20 or 30 or 50 or whatever they charge, but they'll cut the grass. They might shovel the snow. They have a concept of the mechanicals of the house. So when you send them out there, it's not just that raw guy. So, looking for handymen or handy people. It doesn't have to be a man. It could be a woman, but, looking for handymen on Thumbtack is a great place to do that, or on Angie's List is a great place to do that, or just in Craigslist or on Facebook, right? Just looking for those type of people, looking for a handyman. That's the best, right? They would love to be able to have you as an account, especially as you get going and you get more than one property. It's very helpful. Okay. They'll also, and here's the thing that I'd like to voice. You're not trying to hire your whole team before you buy a house. The first thing you need to do is you need to get on the phone, talk to a seller that's motivated, and then have them in step 5, like we're talking about, have them go out and look at the property and see if it qualifies. At that point, you're not hiring anybody. You're just going to pay a couple bucks, $50, $100, $150, whatever it's going to be, to have them go out and look at the house. If they don't keep their word, if they don't do what they're supposed to, you're not going to use them later on, right? So you might go through 2 or 3 or 4 deals before you even buy a deal. So you got a chance to practice with these people. You just start with that one person, get used to them, and then that other person, say to that person, hey, do you know an electrician, or do you know somebody who can cut the grass, or do you know an insurance guy, or do you know, and you just keep asking, and the more people you talk to, the more people you meet, the more people you'll be able to get your network. So you don't need to hire the entire team like right away. Okay, you just start with the inspection first, and honestly, the best people to do inspection, like I said, are either handymen, or a property manager. Those are the best people to do that. Okay. So, and you just start with that one person, and you just kind of unfold the Pandora's box and just keep learning more and more people. The more business you do, the more people you talk to, the more you'll build your network. Does that make sense?
I'll say, yeah, property managers, I think a lot of times they don't really know. If it's a big rehab, I don't know if you're hearing me. Okay, so it's better now. If it's minor stuff, cosmetic stuff, they can see and tell. But a lot of times they don't have the, unless they're very experienced, they wouldn't be able to tell you like what needs to be done.
So you're crazy, Stephen. You would do a major rehab all that way. I suggest our beginners don't do rehabs that far away. Their first deal. They should do rent to own, and they should do pretty houses. But you are correct. If you're going to do a rehab, then you're going to want to go after the contractor, the general contractor, and that's a whole different story. We could talk about that later, but you are correct. I prefer, in fact, Merav, who we talked to last week, we just went over that to our last coaching call about a house that she was looking at. You were there, and it was an ugly house and needed a lot of work. And I was like, just get it under contract and sell the contract. Don't be messing around with the repairs. It's too far away, too much work. Yeah. So if you can get somebody that will do a subject to deal or getting the deed deal and sign over the deed to you and the mortgage stays in their name, just do that paperwork and then go find someone for $5,000 locally that can do that and just sell it. Sell the contract for $3,000, $5,000, $8,000, whatever, right? So, but you would be crazy to do a big rehab. So that's a different conversation. But yes, you are correct, right? All right. So are we good on boots on the ground? Do you feel comfortable with that?
Yeah. There's another point I want to bring in, and maybe it's not the right time in the podcast, but I'll just ask, is a lot of, me being overseas, And obviously, have some kind of a foreign accent. A lot of times when I do the opening, like my first conversation, people ask me like where I'm from, and this also relates to another thing, like is what to answer to that, because they get suspicious. People are sellers or homeowners are a lot of times suspicious. Some of them don't care, but some of them, from my experience, they they ask where are you from, and sometimes I can just kind of walk my way through it and not say it directly, but sometimes they're direct and I have to answer and I tell them straight up, I'm from out of the country, but I say I have a partner in Arkansas in this case,
Exactly.
and he can, if you want to talk to my partner, then, or if you want to meet, I can, have him talk to you, have him.
Exactly.
So that is, I think,
It took a little while for
if
you to
you,
get through that too.
yeah, but I think this is something very important for people working. Obviously, if you're overseas, but also if you're like,
Well, except the
buying a,
same thing happens to me because obviously I'm from Connecticut, and unbeknownst to me, I have an accent. I don't know that. So I start talking to people in the Midwest, and they're like, "Where are you from?" They'll ask me the same question, and I'm just like you, which I think you learned from me. I'm blunt. I'm like, "Well, I'm in Connecticut, but I say I have boots on the ground, or I have people there. We do business in your neighborhood as if it was my backyard." And they're like, "Oh, okay," and it just goes away.
yeah, because I think it's more than, the difference is not really if I'm like foreign or overseas or, in another state. Is a lot of these sellers, they would feel comfortable if it's somebody they know they can meet like
Talk to.
in the house. And obviously a lot of these home sellers or homeowners are getting hit by other, they're getting contacted by other investors, other wholesalers, realtors, and VAs. So I think a lot of times when I call and I have a accent, they think maybe I'm a like a cold caller VA or something like that.
So if that
So
happens, what you need to do, and sorry for interrupting you again, I keep doing that. If that happens, and we talk about this also on the coaching call, if that happens, my solution for that is because they'll tell me, well, I get 5 phone calls a day, and they're trying to tell you like you're just another, like, what can you do for me because I have lots of choices. Which, by the way, that's changing now because the market's changing. I've noticed since July of 2021, the market has decreased, and it's now almost October of 2021, and I'm hearing it in the sellers' voices. They're starting to get humbled because days on market are going up. They're not selling as quick as they used to. But more to the point, I just tell them, "Oh, okay, so you got 5 people calling you a day. Has anybody given you an offer yet?" And they go dead silent. They're like, "Well, no, not really." Well, I'm as live could be. I'm as serious as a heart attack, and I'm here to buy your house. So if you want to sell your house, I'll give you offers. And if I'm out of state, I'll say, I have boots on the ground. I'm ready to like send them out to look at your house. I'm ready to strike a deal. And that backs them up, and they humble, and the conversation completely changes, or they just get off the phone with me because they didn't really want to sell the house, and they were bullshitting me to begin with anyway.
yeah,
Right. All right, cool. So this goes right into the next thing I want to talk about. So we use software, right, that we don't own. I don't own it. I don't even have an affiliate link. They will give me an affiliate link. I don't want to deal with that because I don't make money on selling you an affiliate link. Matter of fact, I don't even make money on selling you half my training. I make my money buying and selling real estate. Okay, that's what I do. Okay, but it's called REI Reply. REI stands for Real Estate Investor. REI Reply, like you're replying to the customers. It's a CRM, a fancy CRM. And CRM is a customer relation management tool. It's an easy tool to use. I know you use it because we trained you on it and we show you how to use it. It costs $50 a month. Okay.
yeah,
So here's the point of REI Reply and why we're bringing it up. This makes it easy for you to get local, get in the neighborhood, because you get local phone numbers. I think the phone numbers are $1 a piece or $3 a piece. I think
Yeah, dollar, $1.
$1. Okay. So you could, like in Connecticut, we have an area code 860 and an area code 203. One's Hartford County, one's New Haven County. They're like 20 minutes apart. And 203s call 860s all the time. But when I'm doing marketing, I want to be in that same area code, right? So the phone numbers make it look like you're right across the street. Okay, that's the first thing. So you can actually pull as many phone numbers as you want. And what we do, and by the way, those phone numbers are also text numbers. So when you're texting them, it's a local number. So this is the reason why I said in the description, until you tell them that you're from out of town or from another location, they really don't know. Now, I understand Asef was just talking about his accent. Quite honestly, I don't think he has an accent, but I've known you for a while. Maybe I'm just used to it.
Thanks.
I wouldn't think that happens a lot, but it could happen. It's the minority, not the majority. Right? Most people will just
obviously. Sorry. Yeah. Obviously, I don't bring it up. I don't. Initially bring it up, but people ask. People sometimes, where are you from? Sometimes they ask it casually, but sometimes they ask it in another they have kind of some suspicion to trying to find out. Just trying to find out if I'm legit, I guess. One other question that comes up is like, what's your company name? That even comes up on text. Like, what's your company name? Where are you located? Stuff like that. So these are also questions that if you're a beginner and you don't have a company, obviously I have an LLC and I can use that, but it doesn't have a lot of like a web presence.
I personally prefer not to talk about my company name. I'd rather just say, well, I'm a local investor. I bought a lot of properties in your area and I can help you. Or if you haven't bought them, you can say my partners bought them, which you do with me. My partner and I have bought hundreds of properties and we're interested in your neighborhood. Or sometimes if I'm in a new area, it's like, I've just started to look in your neighborhood and I like what I see and I'm interested. I mean, I don't want you to lie because that's not me, but the point is that if you're honest with them, and I do agree with you because a lot of people, everything is a scam now. In people's minds, my daughter Emma taught this to me at 27 years old. Everything I tell her about, I want to buy a new piece of software, it's a scam, Dad. I mean, she barely looks at it. And her way of checking to see if it's a scam is to check reviews. So if there's good reviews, then she'll start to change her mind. If there's bad reviews, she'll be like, look at the reviews, Dad, it's a scam. And I'm from old school. I don't believe that. Okay, so yeah, there are scams out there. Yeah, there are people trying to do shit. But what people don't realize, even this thing that was going around where they're talking about people stealing titles, it's not as easy as the TV commercials make it sound like. It's not that way. I mean, yes, there are incidences that are like that, but the majority rule there, not the minority. You know what I mean? So yes, that could happen, but most people don't realize how in control they are of their deed. Right? And when you start talking to them and you humanize it, it makes a big difference. And just as a side note, I have a lot of coaching clients that think they can just sit behind a computer and buy and sell property and not have human interactions. I mean, Sean, my partner, is like that. He's 27 years old, and we talk about that all the time. He's working on it, but every deal has its mathematics, and then it has its human side. And the human side is what makes the deals, not the mathematics. Knowing all the math that we do, the deal structuring, is good to have in your back pocket, but that's never made me the deal. Makes me the deal is people are confident. They're confident in me that I'm going to do what I say. I know I'm talking a lot today, and you're supposed to be talking more, but I just did a deal where I bought 2 lease options. I talked about this a couple weeks ago. I bought a 3-family house with a $100 master lease option, and then I bought 2 family houses that were on the same mortgage, and I bought them together. Okay, and I got a lease option on those, a master lease option on both those properties for $100. Okay, I just sold. I executed my option. I had a 5-year term. I had it for 3 years. I just executed my option. And by the time I get done, the deals are well over. I stopped counting at $350,000. Okay, so I invested $200, and it's 3 years later, but I ended up with like over 350,000. I stopped counting there. Okay, and I'm not saying that to brag. The reason why I'm saying that is because I'm in the middle of those closings. Like I closed on 1 3-family. Now I'm closing on the other 2 this week. What I ended up doing is I sold 1. I made enough money to buy the other 2, to pay off the other 2 and buy them. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. But here's the point that I'm bringing this up. This seller, who I've become friends with because I've been there 3 years, I've been managing, and there's, we talk to one another once a month, every couple months, we became friends, has told me at least 5 times in the last month while going through the closings about his exact words are, "You are a stand-up guy. I can't believe you're doing that." Now, I did one of the deals. I gave him $12,000 I didn't need to give him. But I was making $100 and something thousand off the transaction, and I didn't want his wife to get spooked and think I was making all this money and not do the deal. So it was bride money for me. But here's my point. What he has told me in the last 3 conversations is he had multiple people tell him that they could have done a master lease option with him. The reason why he picked me was because of my confidence. So he says, I talked to 5 or 6 guys like you, and the reason why I picked you is because I felt like you knew what you were talking about and your confidence. And you don't need to do hundreds of deals to have confidence. You just need to be confident in yourself and the way you present yourself. That's why he picked me. That's why I made 350 plus, is because when I spoke to him, it was with confidence. At the end of the day, that's why that deal happened. Right?
Yeah, well, obviously, but people in the beginning of their career as real estate investors or creative real estate investors, it's hard to like come out straight up with confidence because I guess it's just a matter of how many people you talk to, how many conversations you have, how many deals you
have not talked to anybody. You just need to have confidence that what you're talking about is correct. You don't even need to know the math. You can just say, I can rent from you and I can find a subleaser. I can do that. And just be confident. And just believe. See, I don't want to get into this because it's a whole other podcast, but I was thinking the other day, what's the difference? What is fear? So fear is the lack of commitment. So like me, what I do is I commit. I say, okay, by next Thursday, I'm going to have this done. And I have no idea how I'm going to do it. But I have confidence in myself that I can get it done. Where my students won't commit to, I'll get it done next week, because they'll want to go figure it all out before they commit. So what is fear? Fear is the lack of commitment, really. You don't want to commit and then go figure it out. It's kind of like that old adage, the guy that lands with the ships and the battle, and he's got to conquer this island, and he lands with 5 ships and hundreds of soldiers, and the first thing he says is burn the ships. We're either winning the battle or we're not going home. We're dying. That's confidence. And that's the difference between fear. Anyways, I think we beat that to death. We got to move on because we're kind of at the end and we've got some more stuff to do. But you are right. So confidence doesn't pertain to the content of the subject. It's just you being confident. Like here's confidence. I've never done a deal like this before, Mr. Seller. Can you help me do it? That's confidence, right? So you don't need to be confident in the content. You just need to be confident in what you know and you're telling the truth. And that's all, right?
Yeah,
so it's hard to do. It's hard to practice, right?
Yeah. But that's a great point, for people, who are like me or even, doing really their first step, taking the first steps to understand that it's the confidence in yourself and in the system and not having to know everything, up front. And you told me once, we were working on a deal and I remember I was kind of overthinking and thinking what's going to happen if. And you told me, hey, just do it one step at a time. Just think about the next step in the deal. And just focus on that.
Yeah.
And that really kind of helped me straighten out that I really need to focus on what's in front of me.
One thing at a time.
Yeah.
That's right. Your next step.
Yeah.
All right, good. So we use REI Reply. That helps us be local. We could do a whole podcast on that, which we have done. So I know that, and we don't have much time here. I'm sorry, because there's a couple more things to do. So the opening call. I know you've done some opening calls. Is it as bad as you thought before you did the opening calls?
No, actually, it's it depends. Some people are nicer, some people are less nice, but usually we get through the less nicer people, through the text, so we don't have to even talk to them,
Right.
because those are, the ones who will cuss at you or will just be rude. You never even call them.
Yep.
So you only call if you do it. If you're cold calling, obviously you run into that stuff. But if you're texting before that, you only call the people who've shown some kind of interest. And
Which is
some
why
kind of motivation. Yeah.
That's why I suggest doing the two-step method, because then you don't have to deal with the assholes on the cold calling. You don't have to be a cold caller. You actually warm yourself up with the customer, so by the time you get ready to call them, you already know something about them, and they know you're going to call. Right?
Yeah. And then you just have to call, which is it's always hard, even if somebody has shown motivation, just picking up the phone and dialing or pressing the dial button is you have to get into that state of let's jump in the water, but
work it out.
Once you do it, it's usually pretty,
most people are very nice.
Most
people are very nice, and the conversations are very casual. There's no, if you're not casual, then it kind of makes it a little bit harder to build rapport and confidence and all that kind of stuff, but you can do it. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, good. So let's finish up today by talking about the last step, number 5 of the sequence, because step number 5 is the deal meeting, right? So the first step of the deal meeting is everything we've been talking about. That's evaluating the property, doing the inspection, and seeing if you want to do the transaction. Now, for those fear mongers out there, realize that we've not committed to this deal yet. Right? We could walk away. So if the seller's really motivated and completely lied about the property, we don't care, because once we do the inspection, we could walk away. Right? So the second step of the deal is doing the paperwork. But I want to make a comment here about what I just said. Once you finish step 4, which is the closing call, right? What we do is we send what we call a seller memorandum, which is a 1-page document that explains the summary of the closing call. So if it's a rent to own, we're going to send a summary saying that we agreed on this price, the $160,000 or whatever it is, and we agreed to pay you monthly of $1,000 a month, and we're going to do this for 2 years or 3 years or whatever you agree on. And it also says on there, the ones that we use, says that we are going to sublease it to somebody else, and we're going to assign the document. Okay, so it's just a 1-page summary of what it is. And often when you do this, you'll do a Zoom call with them, right? And on that Zoom call, you'll send them. We use DocuSign. There's other services. DocuSign's like $20 or $30 a month. And what DocuSign is it's the ability for you to upload from your computer a document, and then you can tell it where you want it to sign or what you want them to do it. And then while you're on the Zoom call with your seller, you tell them, I just sent you a document. It should be in your email. You then bring that document up while you're on the Zoom call, and you cover the points on the memorandum of what you're going to do. This is what we agreed upon. And you could do this in the closing call, or you could do it afterwards, whenever you're comfortable. But the point is when they have DocuSign in front of them, they can click it and sign it while you're together. No different than when you were in the house. right?
Yeah.
Now, once you have the memorandum signed, you know they're fully committed and they're willing to go forward. That's when you spend the money to go do the inspection and you do all that. You're not doing any of that until you get this memorandum signed. You're not spending any time, any resources. You're not doing crap until they sign the memorandum. Okay.
Yeah, because that's really, as I said, it's kind of I think a step in their mind to a commitment, at least in their mind, even though it's not really a legal, abiding document, right?
No, it's not.
But legally abiding, but
it shows
because this is something. Yeah, this is something I actually had run into, when I was talking to a seller, and he seemed very motivated. He seemed like I was like, hey, I have a subject to deal here. It's like an easy subject to. He's into it. But then, when I sent the memorandum, that's where he kind of started, halting, and his wife got in, and she said had her, reservations, and so I think that's really, as you say, it's kind of like the make it or break it. I mean, you obviously can fall again, even in the other steps, the next steps, but they have to get past the memorandum. That's
so it's much like when you're going to school, right? You need to learn addition and subtraction before you do multiplication, right? Or you need to learn addition, subtraction, multiplication before you do division. And you need to learn all those before you do calculus, right? So, I mean, it's just the process, which is why I have these steps, because if you do them out of sequence, then it just doesn't work. I mean, it's a gross way to say it, but it's like talking to a kindergarten girl about kissing a boy. She's going to be like, ew. But yet you wait when she's a teenager and you're talking to her about not kissing a boy, and she's like, no way. I mean, it's just where they're at in their life. You know what I mean? And that's the way the sellers are. So that's why the sequence is very important. And too often my coaching clients take step 5 and make it step 1. They want to do all the house inspection and all that stuff before they even make an offer, which is wrong. Okay, so this letter of intent or this a memorandum kind of isolates it, and like you said, it gets where their intentions are, and they sign it, and at that point you go do the inspections. Now what happens is the memorandum puts in writing that they are motivated, that they are willing to do what you're talking about. They were able to read it, they were able to digest it, they were able to agree to it. Now you go look at the house. If the house passes inspection, in other words, you like the house, it is a pretty house, it is everything you expected, your boots on the ground looked at it, there's no spooky, things, like we were talking about, it is in present time, a good house, you feel like the math works, you're ready to go, you're comfortable. Now you're going to do the legal documents. You're going to do the lease with the option, or you're going to do, if you're doing subject to, you're going to get the deed and all that paperwork, or if you're going to pay cash, you're going to do a purchase and sales contract, the different forms you would use, which is a whole nother podcast. But at that point, you can draft all those documents. Now, what we do there is we use, and thanks to Matt, one of the guys in your group, he found this for us. We use notarycam.com. notarycam.com, and they actually do closings. They charge a couple $100 to do them. But what happens is now you get on a Zoom call or something equivalent that they use. You get on the call, you explain all the documents, because some are notarized and some are not. So you do the non-notary documents, and they sign them while they're on the call. And then when you're ready, you tell the customer to just call the notary, and they're a 24-hour service. Within a couple minutes, a notary will come on the line, and while you're with them, they will notarize all the documents. But you have already explained them to them, and they do all of it. So, so I prefer somebody who doesn't do my closings, my creative deal closings, unless they're trained. So what you do is you get on and you sign the 4, 5, 6 documents they need to sign, and at that point you have a deal. Okay, so notarycam.com. There's different versions. You can get a notary for like $25, or you can go as, I think it's $175. They do a complete closing. Be quite honest with you, I told this to my attorney, And the first thing he said is, "Holy shit! I guess I'm out of business now, aren't I?"
Yeah.
Because he knows that. I mean, I think in not the too far future, there's no reason to do physical closings anymore. You know what I mean? So, all right, Seth. I hope this was informative. We're at an hour and 9 minutes. We're a little bit over. I can't say thank you enough, man, for your input and being here and taking time out of your day and helping me out. It was really cool. Are there any final words?
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Sorry.
Any final words for our listeners that you'd like to let them know about, or are we good?
I just get out there and do it. And, Bill, you teach a lot of, you really put out a lot of great content, a lot of great free content and some paid content. But you teach, you have methods. Like when I started out, I started with, just texting using text magic. And it was like very simple. And you teach, methods that people can really today, like, after this podcast, get on the computer and start, reaching out to sellers and some more, I guess, sophisticated stuff like what we do with our reply. But it's like the whole, you can do it, with your phone, as you say. And I guess the more you do, the more you'll get, the more action you take. That's
Exactly right.
That's what's going to make a difference.
Yeah, the free content that I put out there is not going to get you to fire your boss, but it will get you started to make some money.
Obviously.
Get you the other training. You know what I mean? All right, good. Seth. Thank you again. Don't forget that there's to the listeners. Don't forget that in the description, wherever you're listening to us or watching us, there's a link there of a video that I did back in the early pandemic of how I do virtual deals. Go help yourself there. And there's a lot of other stuff there that I put in there, so you can go check it out. And don't forget that, to go subscribe to Facebook or YouTube, or subscribe to us on your podcast channel, so that when we have a new show that's uploaded, we're there and you can get the latest and the greatest of whatever we're talking about, because I try to keep on top of, the market and what's going on. Okay. So with that said, over and out. I think next podcast we're going to be with Peter. I think he's back from his retreats or his sabbatical, but we'll see what happens. If not, I have other students that want to be here, so we'll probably still do that. So make sure.
I got to do a podcast with Peter about the guitars sometime.
Oh, there you go.
You take a vacation and leave us to talk about guitars and music.
There you go. That might happen. So, all right, guys, over and out. Thanks again for all your support and listening. And if you have any questions, go to flippinghousesforrookies.com. Top right-hand side is a support ticket. I answer all of them. I'll answer your questions. Okay? Good night.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.